Hello and welcome to the Joyful Rebels podcast, where rebellion meets wellness. We've got Claire and Donna Thomas here, your mother daughter duo, and we are here to bring you our insight, some science, and maybe share some laughs in this, our pursuit of finding more peace, joy, and balance in our physical and mental health. Thank you for listening today. Thanks for joining us as we discuss some practical tips to empower you on your journey to living your best life. So, what you heard in the intro, that's really what we're going to be focusing on today, taking a look at physical and mental health. And this week's episode, I think, is pretty fun because, and Mom, you came up with this, but I love this idea. We're really going to focus on in this season what's something that you can pick up, but also what's something that you can put down. Because a lot of times, what are we told? What's advertised to us? You need to add. You need to add. What are you missing? You need to add more to your life. When really, sometimes it can be more beneficial. Hey, what can you take off your plate? What do you not need to be holding on to right now in this season? And this can be in terms of thoughts, behaviors, all the
hmm
things. And so, Mom, I think it's a great idea that you brought up when we want to think about this, and maybe if you're listening, you're like, oh, I already know. Whoa, this is easy, like totally top of mind. But maybe you want to think about the different areas of wellness, or we've referred to these like buckets of wellness that we can focus on. And if y'all remember way back when we had Kimberly Spreen Glick as a guest on the podcast, and she talked about her wheel of well being. So it's really these different topics or buckets of wellness that we can kind of do this like assessment, right? And reflection of where do we stand? Is this something that, yeah, I'm doing great in, or something I might want to focus on moving forward? So, Mom, what are we thinking? Wheel of well-being.
Yeah, which is an assessment and a way to look at categories in our life to bring clarity. I mean, that's really what it is. And I still use it with clients too. And I still review some of this as I enter a new season because the answers that I give to some of these areas is different,
Mm.
as it should be, you guys. This is not a set it and forget it type of way to live. There are things that are going to be in flux depending on the seasons of your lives. And we have to be strategically agile in order to be excited about life, stay curious, meet the goals, assess how we've been doing, evaluate if that was actually doing the thing that we thought it was going to do, and be willing to change. So as much as I would love things to be like really steady and like, I do this because I do this because I do this, I haven't found much satisfaction or growth in there in that way of thinking. So just as a review, the Wheel of Well-Being has 6 different areas or spheres of your life that you can look at if you want to either celebrate or make some changes. And the first one is one that we talk about a lot. It's more so the physical space, but that includes moving, fueling, and resting. So those are 3 really big things that go hand in hand. They're intertwined, and there's a lot to manage in there or to look at, but there's also a lot of opportunity. So the first one would be physical, and that's all those things that are in there. The next one is emotional. And to Claire's earlier point, we at Joyful Rebels here, we tend to focus on these first two, whether it's your how you live in your body, and that's all aspects of it, and then how that affects your mental health or your emotional wellness. So those are the top two, but there's other ones too. And this is just to see if there's something in your life. This might be like, oh, that's the one that is I'm going to look at this season. This is just for your information and to help you prioritize what you're going to look at if it's not top of mind right now. Okay, so we've got the first two. The next one would be social. How's your social wellness doing? Is that something you really look at? Maybe you're in a season where you've got extra time or less time, which tends to affect our social network, our connections, and not only to ourselves, but to friends and the external or larger community. So maybe yours is going to be something in the social realm. It could also be in the intellectual realm. Could be something where are you a lifelong learner? And that doesn't mean that you have to take a specific course or certification, but what are you currently interested in that you want to learn more about? And then what are you doing with that information? Because it's not just about data banking. That's a really big point that's important to me. I don't believe that life is about just learn about things and never use it. Because what we do know is that if you're learning new things and you put it into practice at least a little bit, it becomes super sticky in your brain and you'll remember it. So That's could be intellectual for you. How about another one? Environmental, which can look kind of sounds like it's going to be something outside, and that absolutely is encompassed with your outside and getting out in nature. I think environmental wellness is a big one. If you live in a place where the seasons change a lot, you want to take advantage of being outside, but also take a look around where you spend the most time in your day. Is it an office? Is it your kitchen? Is it your bedroom? Is it a community place? Like, where is that? And does that space really bring you joy? Or is maybe there potential clutter or challenges with how it makes you feel? That one is kind of low key, but it absolutely has a way of affecting our mood that we may not identify. So don't leave your environment out of it. It matters where you spend your time in your space. And then there's also spiritual. So that is a bigger realm where some people like they're seeking, they're looking for more meaning in life. And when that one has been this um, almost nagging, nagging isn't the right word. You're searching, you're seeking for something. You're not quite sure what it is, but you realize that there's a hole in the fabric of your life. Like I want more answers in an area because I think life is bigger than just what we're doing right here. And that can look specifically like just spiritually in general, or it could look more of a faith-based way of looking at things. But that is something that my 2 cents on that is that the older you get, you ask these bigger questions. That's what I have found from, and I could be wrong on that, but I'm noticing the older we get, we start asking bigger questions of the why. So that could be where you're at, where you're asking more questions of why. I would call that spiritual. So I think that's everything, right? Physical, emotional, social, intellectual, environmental, and spiritual. And yeah, we got all that. That was a lot. Didn't mean to make it muddy. Hopefully you got the top of mind. You're like, oh, that's the one that's for me. And or maybe you've got something completely different. We just wanted to give you a couple of talking points to refresh your memory. We'll link the podcast with Kimberly, where she goes into more detail, and also the
Yes.
actual assessment itself has been available.
Yep.
But that's worth your time. That's worth your time to take a look at that. So I've got that. I had an awareness. I took a look at it. There's a couple of things when I think about uh, picking up and setting things down. Um, I don't know about you, but sometimes I overcomplicate things. So I just gave myself one thing to pick up and one thing to set down, and that will create movement.
Mhm.
That's enough to create movement because that's it. Whether you're listening to this on a dog walk or you're doing something around your house or you're in the office and you're multitasking, some of it, I still believe that we feel that we got to have something really big and make a big overhaul change for it to be meaningful. And I just don't believe that. And I know, Claire, you don't either. You have to be aware and then you have to take a little step and the rest of it just starts gaining momentum. So for me, I have like 3 things that I could look at. The one I'll share with you for me is I'm looking at the physical. The physical for me, which I know I talk about it, but I live in my body. And so
Mhm.
do you. So we all live in our bodies. So we're thinking like we're going to move at least some of it. But here's what I'm doing. I am looking to lay down. That's the first thing I'm looking at. One of the HIIT classes, high intensity interval training, where you get a higher heart rate. You're having probably a fusion of cardiovascular work that gets you breathing heavier, but you also have weighted work, resistance training in there too. That is a big bang for your buck. I've lived an entire lifetime doing that style. I had a professional career in that style. But what I have noticed is that in this season, if I said I wanted to get stronger, then I don't need to focus on that particular way to get there because I don't think it's helping me get toward my goal of getting stronger. And so if I let that go, what am I going to pick up? And the answer might surprise you, but what I'm going to pick up is one extra day of rest.
Yes.
I know.
I love
Like
it.
I know it in my head. I know
Mhm.
it. Anybody else, like, you know it in your head, but I don't want to let go of that because I feel better when I do X, Y, or Z. You fill in the blank with whatever that is. No, I'm intentionally adding another full day of rest because that's what we know. We get stronger when we're resting, when we're sleeping, when we're allowing our bodies to be at their homeostasis instead of pushing them up higher all the time, because that's its own slippery slope of I need to do that to feel better. I don't. I have other tools. I have other tools that I'm going to use, but I've already begun this process. Weirdly enough, I already feel better. And isn't that telling that regardless of what we put our minds and our bodies through, our we're such unique and amazing human beings that our bodies adapt
Mm.
until they don't. So I feel really good about letting go of one intense workout, adding a whole nother full day of recovery. And then my goal of be getting stronger instead of just smaller is right still in my, I'm looking out the windshield on that. And I feel like that's a smart move in this season. And I already feel better. How's that landing for you, Claire?
You said a couple things that really stick out to me. The first, like, you know something in your head, right? But that doesn't mean you're actually doing it. And man, I can relate to that because I think everything that I came up with in my list of what to add or take away, they're things like, I know these are good, but that doesn't make it easy, right?
Mm,
What's that? Well, it can be simple, but that doesn't make it easy. And I think that's so true. And sometimes we can beat ourselves up like, come on, I know I should be taking a rest day. Why is this so difficult for me? But our habits, we're used to doing a certain way. The story that we're telling ourselves of how we should be working out, right? But hey,
mm,
I know rest is good. So I mean, there's definitely that barrier in your own head to making some of these changes. And so I think it's really interesting to say that I still did it, right? It might have been difficult, but I still did it. And then you said you're already noticing benefits from it. So I think that's really hopeful to hear that hey, you're gonna try it. And what do we say with all of our tips and tricks and life hacks and advice here on the Joyful Rebels? Like you're gonna try something, right? And if it's something that you know is maybe might be good for you, but you haven't done it yet, you're gonna try it. And you're
mm,
gonna get some data points, right? You're not going to try it just one day. Like you need some time to collect that data, but then you get to evaluate. And if you've been hitting it really hard, like the high stress, high impact workouts, and you incorporate some rest, you might find a lot of even hidden benefits in that in terms
mm.
of sleep or, food cravings,
Yeah.
or maybe when you do return then to your next workout, like you're ready, right? You're more ready than you were, and you're putting in more work on the days that you are doing those workouts. So I mean, there's a lot of good stuff there. And I'm the same as you when we're talking about what to put down and what to pick up. I also have reduced the hit workouts that I'm doing. And so it's funny when you mentioned that to me and I said, "Wow, I am in the same boat." My reason being, like, my schedule just did a whole crazy shift, right? If you heard a couple episodes back, like I just started this PhD program at Louisiana State University. So all of a sudden now I'm going on to campus every day. I've got classes, I'm helping teach and grade. So it's been a big wrench in my
Mm,
schedule. And if you're anyone like me, like I like to have my schedule set. I like to have boxes on my calendar where I've written what it is, and then the box is kind of like equivalent to the size of how much time that event takes. Like this is this is where I'm at. I like to look at it. I like to know it's there. So what I'm putting down is when I looked at movement, I just couldn't fit in all the exercise that I usually was doing, and I wanted to try new things. Like I'm trying to get into like trail running, for example, just as something different to do that I thought I would never do, but where I live now, there's more access to that. And so there's only so much time in a day and a
mm,
week, so I had to take something away. So, mom, again, I was in the same boat as you. It felt hard because I have these old stories telling me, no, my heart rate needs to be through the roof for that to be a good workout. Like I need to be like sweating through my clothes. And it's like, no, I know that's not true, but I really have to know it or live through it. Right. Get that evidence that, yeah, no, this is okay. I'm going to survive. I'm still moving my body in probably a more sustainable way in the long run. Um, but in terms of my schedule flipping and all that, so I took away the hit, but I think just more bigger picture, I'm trying to put down this need to have this perfect color coded boxed out schedule. And
mm.
I'm not throwing all my planners, in the trash, but it's just this idea that flexibility is good. And again, I know this, but when I've lived in this rigid scheduling for so long, it has been something that for me to let go the need for it to be so rigid and planned out, I've actually noticed a lot of benefits already. So, for example, I've been going into work earlier. I've just been hanging out in my office instead of trying to plan out every hour, like before I have class, for example. I've just been going into the office. What's the benefit? I have been able to have conversations and make connections with these awesome women in my cohort. There's 9 other women that are also first year PhD students with me from all over the world, all with completely different research interests. And by just being available, in that
Mm,
place, I feel like it's increasing in my social component, right, of my
mm,
wheel of well-being because I'm there. I'm not having this, okay, I have 2 hours, what can I cram into it? So being more open and available has invited in this chance to make connections, which I haven't had
mm,
in so long. So that I feel like has been really cool. And the last thing that I feel like is related to me, um, letting go of rigidity of my schedule and also just trying to be flexible is I've had to walk a lot more. I've
mm.
had to park and walk. And for a while I said, "Oh, I got to put this into my schedule now, like how long it takes me to get from the car door to the office door." And I was thinking of it in terms of that, and all it took was a shift in perspective to make a really big difference. Now I'm like, huh, I get to walk. And I know in my head that walking is a great form of movement and it's great for your mental health and it's great
Nice.
for your physical health. So I'm going to enjoy this 12 minutes instead of this, oh man, I wish I could fast forward and just be where I'm going. I'm going to enjoy it. So I feel like this falls into the environmental bucket in a well
Yeah.
and the physical and the mental. But I'm like, checking out the cool trees on campus because I like cool trees. There's a lot of those there. Not that I even know what they are, but I'm like, oh, this looks nice. And it's usually earlier in the morning, so it's not 90 degrees yet. So it's just again shifting. Maybe what you're putting down is just the perspective of how you're looking at
Mm,
something and just allowing it to be. Like, what else, if I'm not putting my negative lens on it, what else could be? And that's when it popped up. Oh, it's actually kind of nice. And so
yeah.
that's a lot going on that's related to just, my schedule changing. What do I need to let go of? And then what do I end up adding? But again, for me, it was like what I was adding just kind of ended up adding into my life in a good way
Hmm.
because I was taking away some of that rigidity and that strictness in the way I was thinking. So maybe even if you're, looking at your list or what you're thinking of, what can I pick up? What can I put down? Maybe if you start with putting something down, the door opens wide,
Yeah.
wide open for what you can end up picking up. And you won't
Oh,
even know yet, right? Like the benefits, you don't even know.
yeah. That there's so much there in a really good way. That we're so integrated with all these different ways that we have needs and how we show up in the world and ways to be well and ways that we can influence our life and live in a healthy way for this season, for the things that we like and that we desire, because there's a balance in that. And that to shift your perspective isn't a major overhaul. You don't have to get hit in the head to
Mm,
do that. You can just decide to do that. And then to hear all of the things that happened after that, Claire, like I love hearing that. That gives me so much hope that
mm-hmm,
I don't have to think it all through. I have to think a little bit and get a start, and I will get all these other things that happen. And what it feels to me too is that I'm in the moment and I'm not super worried about what happened or ruminating about the past, and I'm not obsessing about the future. Like if I can let things be what they are, make a little bit of movement, and then just watch on how things unfold, I am continually surprised and delighted in ways that I didn't see coming. And that's vitality. That
mm.
to me is that when people are like, they look at you and like, what are they, what are you doing? And you're like, well, I like life. I'm liking life, but I'm also taking each season as it comes and I'm making some adjustments based on that. And then just having this wonderment like a kid, like, what's it going to look like? And I think that is huge. And I take my cue from you from that to put some language around it, but I feel the exact same way. And there's several other things that I could look at, but I'm just going to keep my focus right here and just notice everything that comes along with it, that they are a gift and that we're not done. And every morning that we wake up and we got breath in our lungs, we're like, what's going to happen today?
Mhm.
What kind of adventure is going to happen? And then we take everybody that we get in contact with, we take them all with us in either a conversation that you have with your cohort people, Claire, or the people, your kids with your significant other. Like, everybody else gets to benefit from us being curious and being in the present. So I'm going to keep picking stuff up, laying some stuff down, and see what today's balance of things looks like, because it's encouraging and it's fun. And that's where I'm landing.
Yes, fun. I love that. Thank you to all you who listened today. And as you mentioned, Mom, I'm going to put a link to the podcast with Kimberly if you guys want to dig deeper into that wheel of well being. I'm also going to we actually do have that worksheet if you wanted to look at it, have it in front of you and see it. Because sometimes it does definitely help to be able to brainstorm or just realize you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into one thing, right? Because, Mom, we tend to focus on movement and intellectual and emotional, but hey, there's all these other areas as well. So um I think keywords for today are, you know just start, right? We're going to
Just start.
think small and hopeful, because even if you're just start by putting down something which you might think is small, it can really open this door to lots of cool fun things. I love that.
Hmm.
Word of the week, fun. Well, thank you for listening today. We're so happy that you could join us. And until next time, Rebels.